Hey everybody, today is December 20th, 2023. I'm Gene, and thank you for joining us for the Wednesday edition of Hanging with Uncle. I kind of want to get right into it today because now I feel like it's time to start talking about the groundbreaking legal happenings that are going on in the world of cadet bone spurs. So, to talk about that, we can't do anything without our man on the street. So, welcome back to the show, Brent Naple. Hi, Brent.
Hey, thank you, Gene. It's gonna be a fun show, man. I'm glad back on. It's kind of another continuation of really the topic from Friday.
Yeah,
In a way, we were kind of setting it up, knowing what was going to happen, and I mean, this is it. This is a big decision by Colorado. Now we're going to see what happens on the other side with the Supreme Court, and really, that's going to be the tell all of what's going on. So, man, I'm glad we could talk about it, man.
yeah, absolutely. So, again, just so we're on the same playing field, these are the facts. If you want, you can go to the Colorado judiciary website, however they um, post their stuff, and under the Freedom of Information Act, request all the filings and the judicial findings and the rulings from the courts and the appellate court and now the Supreme Court. So it's out there. All right, it's truth. All you have to do is look at it. It's right there. And well, I think what's important to note is that this started as a lawsuit by six voters in the state of Colorado suing the Secretary of State to have Donald Trump's name removed from the ballot. And that is how the lawsuit started. The Secretary of State of Colorado is a Democrat. And again, she was sued along with Donald Trump to keep him off the ballot under applying Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So that is how the whole case got started to begin with. Do you have any?
Wasn't that four? Wasn't that four Republicans too,
It was
and two independents?
correct. The six voters were four Republican and two no party affiliations or independents, however you want to classify them. There were no registered Democrats involved in this lawsuit,
Interesting times.
right? So remember that if you want to know the truth, instead of hearing how, oh my God, the left is after him, look what they did in Colorado. Nope, that's not what happened. Okay, so long story short, this is a trial about an election. And in election trials, there's no jury. Just like there was no jury in the Gore v. Bush case, right? No election trials have a jury because of the expediency of how this will affect the ballot. And during this trial, they were accusing Donald Trump of being an insurrectionist, and they put on evidence and heard witness testimony and determined that, yes, he was part of the insurrection against the United States. Where the trial court messed up, they said that, but according to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, he's not an officer of, the country or any office. And the Supreme Court of Colorado and their decision basically said, yes, we agree. There was definitely an insurrection that he was involved in. And you got it wrong in the fact that he's not an officer according to the Constitution when he is. He's the top officer. He took an oath. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear. That's an oath. And the Colorado Supreme Court said, yes, all the elements have been met. Check. and you are not eligible to be on the ballot in the state of Colorado. And that is what's going to the Supreme Court.
Was Giuliani in the trial farting again, or what?
Giuliani has nothing to do with the Colorado trial because he's not on the ballot. So this is strictly a lawsuit meant to keep Donald Trump off the ballot because he's an insurrectionist after what happened on January the 6th.
I thought he might have been called in as an expert witness.
No, they brought in sitting members of Congress who were there because they were victims at the time. You know, they had to hide and take shelter and flee and all that. So they had them testify. They brought in some Capitol Police that were there that sustained injuries, like Officer Maroney. He was the first witness. And the court said, yes, there was an insurrection. So it was a trial. They heard evidence and made a determination on a bench trial that there was an insurrection and Donald Trump was involved in it.
Well, that's how the whole proceeding started going through Congress too. They had all those people come through, and so I'm sure they were, like you were saying, they were using tapes of that, and probably some people showed up in person. But it just seems like it's a continuation of it. And was it on C-SPAN?
That's where I watched it on C-SPAN, yeah, because any proceeding done in the House or the Senate is broadcasted on C-SPAN.
Even the Colorado trial?
The Colorado trial is different. That's a state trial. And in state trials, you are allowed to bring cameras in the court if the judge deems so. And the Colorado trial was live for everyone to see.
Okay. Because I didn't see any mention of that being live, so I was just wondering if you watched that live or not, and it sounds like you did.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And without a doubt, there's no doubt in my mind after watching all the evidence presented that he committed an insurrection. He incited it against the United States on January the 6th. And so now we're going to have to see what the issues are going to be brought up before the Supreme Court. And that is where it's going to really get interesting.
Now, it seems like there was some doubt from what I read, because most of the Supreme Court, the Colorado Supreme Court, was appointed by a Democratic governor, and I think there was 6 democratically approved Supreme Court justices, and then 1 was a Republican, but the vote came out to be 4-3. 4 for favor of impeachment. So it sounds like a couple of the Democrats kind of felt like not so sure about it. How do you think this is going to play out on the Supreme Court?
So I'm glad you brought that up because in the majority, now remember, before Neil Gorsuch was a member of the United States Supreme Court, he was on the Colorado State Supreme Court. And in the case of Colorado v. Hassan, Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion, and I'm just going to paraphrase here that says, if somebody's deemed to be unqualified to be on the ballot, then they shouldn't be on there, period. And so it'll be interesting when this case gets to the Supreme Court and Gorsuch is reading his own words to determine if Donald Trump should be kept off the ballot in Colorado. It's going to be interesting. We're going to see how much of a man of how much fortitude he has in his words and his conviction.
Do you think like how Mrs. Brown just rescinded from being on a certain decision? Do you think he might, because he has involvement and they mention his name, he actually might step down from making a decision on that, or you think he still will?
No, I don't think he has any conflict. Who I do think
Okay.
should step down and recuse himself from this case is Clarence Thomas because of the involvement his wife had in working with the insurrectionists, people like Mark Meadows, to have him work harder to overturn the election. So if any justice needs to be disqualified, I think it's Clarence Thomas.
That's true. I totally forgot about his wife doing that.
Yeah,
And that it was such an obvious ploy too as it was happening. And that what is her name? Jenny?
yeah, Ginny. Virginia Thomas. They call her Ginny for short.
Yeah, yeah. And that some of the things that she was doing right before, and that if there is separation of powers and all that, and there shouldn't be any type of executive branch, the like judicial. You shouldn't have that type of influence really by her calling up Mark Meadows and trying to go ahead and do that. Of course, she could influence her husband, which is a yes man, it seems like to her, and basically her money kind of got him into that position. It almost seems like. I don't know if you feel that way or not, but it just seems like that is just it should have never happened. I meant, so yeah, definitely he should step down from that.
So I'm glad you brought up separation of powers because right now I think one issue or scenario the Supreme Court is going to have to weigh is what would happen to the Constitution, the document they took an oath to protect and defend. Now remember, you place your hand on the Bible and swear an oath to the Constitution. You don't put your hand on the Constitution and swear an oath to the Bible. Right? So,
Yep.
upholding the Constitution, we've already heard this maniac on the campaign trail talking about how he needs to abolish the Constitution and do away with it. I think when it comes time to keeping their power as a co-equal branch of government, I believe that that's in their best interest to rule in favor of Colorado and keeping him off the ballot because it would be, like I said, it would be the same as what we've seen in Israel with what Netanyahu did, diminishing the power of the Supreme Court. They're not going to do that here. I don't think they're that weak-minded to give up the power of the Supreme Court. That's a lifetime appointment. And if you give that up to say, okay, go ahead and be a dictator, then, we have no Supreme Court anymore. They're compromised and separation of powers has been crossed and the power of the Supreme Court is diminished. And I think they really need to consider that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And that, a lot of the things that happened in Israel was over Benjamin bringing in the religious end more and having that influence over the Supreme Court. So what is the ultimate rule of law? Is it so there has to be a separation of power.
There does.
And that go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say, just on a slight frolicking detour here, the more I learn about Benjamin Netanyahu, the more I believe with all my heart he needs to be removed from power in Israel, and that is a whole separate show. But
yeah, that's what everyone keeps on saying too, man.
Yeah.
We keep on hearing it over and over again in our groups, so it seems like, if you look at what's going on too with that, he's, if they're going in there and Blinken is pressuring them to back off and end that war, now he's going to be looking even more like the bad guy. So as a Jewish person, you understand that it's Jewish law and continuity is most important. So if he's actually bad for the image of the Jewish people, he might have to step down from that.
Again,
You know?
Brent, I agree. That's a whole nother show. I don't want to get
Yep.
sidetracked. But yeah,
Okay.
he's got to go. I want to also kind of give another reason why I think or another piece of evidence to put on the scale. Because remember, this is a balancing test, what the Supreme Court does. We're looking at the right of a citizen of this country to be on the ballot and run for president. Also, at the same time, weighing protecting the Constitution, which one is greater, and what is the evidence to support what you have and how we should rule. And that is really the rule that the Supreme Court is supposed to use. And if they use that rule, that line of logic, not only, again, we've talked about separation of powers, but we also talk about codifying and upholding our Constitution and its importance. Because remember, the 14th Amendment, Section 3, does not say Donald Trump cannot hold office if he participates or engages in an insurrection. It says any person. It just so happens that this dumbass gets to have his name inserted in here because of his actions that he's done. And weighing that, I think the Supreme Court really would be derelict in its duties not to choose the Constitution over Donald Trump, because it is up to the states to determine that, and the state of Colorado has heard the evidence and decided that, yes, he was part of an insurrection.
Well, I hope they do make the right decision on it. I mean, for me, it seems like if they knew about this actually even before the election, that he wasn't going to leave peacefully, and people were talking about it on the media, and for some reason there wasn't much action on January 6th, even though I knew other people were ready for it. There was definitely people ready for it, and some people knew for sure what was going on. So you got to go ahead and set an example. You got to set a legal precedent. If you set the legal precedent that the 14th Amendment, Section 3 doesn't matter, then that means anybody and their mother that holds office again could do the same abhorrent behavior.
I'm glad you brought that up, man, because I think the real question to ask is, if this was Joe Biden we were talking about, would you still feel the same way? If he did everything Donald Trump did, if he stood on the ellipse and said, go fight like hell, would you still feel the same way? Or would you say, no, he needs to be hung by the highest yardarm? See, it's that, like we talked about before, that equal application of the law. Where is the continuity? The Supreme Court has to get this right, and there's only one answer if you use that logic.
Yeah, you have to have continuity of government too. That's another really upsetting thing for me personally right now, is how both of our presidents are being talked about, and as an impeachment and convictions and sons in trouble and blah 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 and blah. We just so quickly fell apart as a society. It's just. I mean, for me, it just makes me so worried right now. What is going to be happening in the next year? Know what happened during the last election cycle. Now, granted, we had a very more boisterous, radical person in office during the last election cycle. But Biden could actually walk back the aggression right now. And I hope he actually takes the higher road on it and then starts talking about what the Constitution means, what the 14th Amendment means,
But
you know, all that. And not a us versus them.
he won't.
It has to be, huh?
He won't say a word, and I'll tell you why. And I agree with you because I think it would mean a lot if it came from him, but at the same time, think of any statement he makes by the president, what that might do to a potential jury pool. He has to be quiet. He's got to keep his mouth shut because just think if Gene Smith was on trial and the president of the United States was talking about what a terrible person I am, how am I supposed to get a fair trial? That would be my argument, and guess what? That case would be dismissed. So that is why Biden never says anything. And
Yeah,
we have to really remember that. That's very important.
yeah. I didn't really think about that aspect of it until you mention it. That's so true because he is. By him not saying anything, he will take the higher road.
Yeah.
I mean, he could talk about, of course, about the division issues and this and that, but he does have to watch his wording because that's how the last episode happened.
I agree. And honestly, so I think once just one court criminal proceeding has been adjudicated and he's been found guilty, now the gloves are off because it's done. A jury of your peers has said you did this, and it's over at that point. But right now, up until that point, I promise you, I believe Biden is just waiting. He's licking his chops to say something about felon Donald Trump, not candidate Donald Trump.
I'm sure he's got a few bones to pick with that guy.
Oh, without a doubt.
He took off the gloves a little bit before he got elected, but that's of course common sense from a political standpoint about trying to get elected, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he would probably wait. I wonder if he would wait until he's out of office.
No,
you know, I would hope he wouldn't attack him right away, just because we are at such a conflict level. I would hope he would take the higher road even after the election if he gets reelected. I believe he will be. So if he's going to be reelected, you know, and there is a problem right now, and we need to unite, not divide, and he's in for another 4 years, I would hope he would wait until, 2029 before he really starts hammering on Donald. But that's really up to him. It's his game, you know, and I can understand there's a personal problem with what he's been saying and how the attacks on his family has unfolded and all that. But you are the example of morality in a way too. If you're a president, you're not leading by just what you say. You know, I mean, you're leading your actions, everything. You're setting a moral standard for America, I believe. And I wish we would get back to that again.
Here's my thing, man, and I'm just being funny, but kind of not at the same time. But if I'm Joe Biden, if my son Hunter is convicted, I damn sure would pardon him, and I dare anybody to say shit after Cadet Bonespurs pardoned Jared Kushner's dad. You know, you pardon daddy-in-law, but, you know, heaven forbid Biden wants to give a pardon to his son so he's not in jail. You know, again, just more hypocrisy, but, you know, that's the way I look at it. And, again, if it was Joe Biden, would we still be standing here, or would you be saying that son of a bitch needs to be hung? You know, it's the same law applied equally. It's kind of like something my mom told me one time. You know, if somebody you don't like says something, pretend somebody you like said it. And if it makes sense, then it makes sense, even though this person you don't like said it.
Mm. My mom told me something totally different. I won't bring it up here. Hell has no wrath like my mother.
Oh man. Well, anyway, I think that's about all I really have to say about this issue. Is that I think all the evidence is there that there's nothing the defense can say about this, and in the end, I believe the Supreme Court will uphold the state of Colorado's decision, their verdict, and then other states who have cases pending, like Arizona and Minnesota and Michigan and Wisconsin, will all start following suit. And it's just accountability. These are how the chickens come home to roost. You hold them accountable. You don't let them be on the ballot, because you've already seen what he's done with one chance at the Oval Office, and he doesn't deserve another one. And that's why we have the 14th Amendment.
So once they set that legal precedent, it's still up to the states to adopt, to recognize it or not.
Correct.
Well, Texas could still decide, hey, or whatever state could still decide, hey, we're going to leave them on the ballot. But someone could appeal that, again, to the Supreme Court, and they could overrule it. Is that correct?
So here, I'm glad you brought that up, because I almost forgot something that's really important. And that's the write-in candidate, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, let's say Colorado and all these other states are successful in keeping him off the ballot, and the people say, well, we're just going to write him in anyway. Ha, ha, ha. That's what we want. Well, there's laws. Remember, if you want to be a write-in candidate, you have to go to the Secretary of State's office and file as a write-in candidate. And if you've already been disqualified, guess what's going to happen if you try and file as a write-in candidate? It's going to be dismissed. So anybody that writes the name Donald Trump in there thinking, I'm going to write him in as a candidate, is going to be wasting their time. It would be like not voting for anybody. It won't count for a damn thing.
So you're saying Mickey Mouse might get, Donald Trump might get more write-in candidates than Mickey Mouse? You ever heard how Mickey Mouse keeps on getting all those write-in?
It's possible. It's possible.
He is a popular candidate, Mickey. I'm telling you. I don't know.
Well, all I can say, again, man, there are laws as far as write-in candidate. It's not no holds barred. We're just going to bum rush the ballot. It doesn't work like that. If you don't register as a write-in candidate, then you get none of the signatures that are written on the ballot for you. And if you've been disqualified from running for office, you won't be allowed to be a write-in candidate.
All right. I'm still voting Mickey Mouse. I'm still voting Mickey Mouse. That's it.
It'll mean the same thing.
Well, it's a fun show, brother. I'm glad we talked about it.
Definitely, man. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, guys. And I have to go practice something diabolical now. Diabolical. I'm sorry, I talk like Bugs Bunny a lot. So anyway, Brent, thank you for being on the show. Do you have any parting remarks you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, hit that subscribe button.
Thank you.
You forgot.
I like being on a roll, man. I like engaging our audience first, man. So yes, please hit the subscribe button and that like button. It looks like the thumbs up. And that bell on the far right is our notification bell to let you know whenever we go live and put new content like this out there. So thank you for joining us. And Zane and I look forward to seeing you on Friday. Thank you again, Brent, for being on the show.
No problem, brother. See you soon.
All right. Bye, everybody.